Hi, everyone, and welcome to Heal Utah's final Capitol Report. Big thank you to everybody who has tuned in throughout the session. My name is Abby, and I am Heal's legislative intern, and I am joined today by
Carmen Valdez, grassroots organizer.
No Maturko, policy associate.
Grace Olscamp, other policy associate.
HB 91 by Representative Stoddard and sponsored by Senator Phil Moore. The tax credit for alternative fuel heavy-duty vehicles passed and is on the governor's desk waiting to be signed. This bill reenacts and extends an income tax credit for certain alternative heavy-duty vehicles that will help clean up our air along the Wasatch Front.
One bill that we followed all session and fought hard that unfortunately passed was Senate Bill 176, Mineral Lease Amendments. And what this bill does is impact something called the Community Impact Fund Board. And this was set up to allocate funds from extraction leases to support negatively impact communities through infrastructure investments and things like that. And what this bill does is essentially eliminates the community lead language in the CIB and essentially opens this fund up as an industry piggy bank, while also trying to retroactively influence lawsuits specifically addressing the misuse of CIB funds. So we're concerned about this bill for a lot of reasons, and we really want to see these rural communities have money and support they need to offset the negative impacts of the extraction industry, and this bill flips that into basically a fossil fuel industry subsidy. So we think it's a bad deal for Utah and a bad deal for rural Utah.
A bill that we followed that did pass is Senate Bill 146, which is emissions testing amendments, sponsored by Senator Bramble and Representative Harrison. This great bill passed, and it simply makes a diesel emissions testing program a permanent program in relevant counties.
a bad bill that unfortunately passed this session was SB 243, Political Subdivisions Amendments, which was sponsored by Senator Stevenson and Representative Gibson. And basically this bill expands and changes authorities of the Utah Inland Port Authority, including the ability to receive loans and assign people to a loan approval committee, conduct public and private meetings, and define land ownership conflicts.
Great bill that passed this legislative session was SB 15, sponsored by Senator McCain and Representative Winder, the Workforce Solutions for Air Quality Amendments. This instructs our state agencies to encourage and measure teleworking options for our state employees on poor air quality days, and encourages all of our state agencies to reach 40% employees teleworking on our red air days and 70% of employees teleworking on purple and maroon air quality days. We're really excited this bill passed to help improving our air quality.
Another bill that passed that we opposed was House Bill 17, Utility Permitting Amendments. What this legislation does is prohibit municipalities and counties from making certain restrictions on utility services. So the goal of this bill is to prevent communities from banning natural gas, which of course is a key polluter coming from buildings on the Wasatch Front and will soon overtake tailpipe emissions as the biggest polluter on the Wasatch Front. So it's not a forward-looking bill. It was brought forward by the Gas Association and gas industry lobbyists to benefit themselves rather than benefit the public health of folks on the Wasatch Front. We're hopeful that the community is still aiming to achieve 100% net zero emissions. We'll be able to do so by creating incentives and working with existing policy rather than simply banning natural gas in the future. But again, this is a bad bill. It came from a bad place, but we're hopeful that the overall effect won't be so bad.
So a bad bill that we were watching this session that ultimately failed actually was Senate Bill 205, which is election processes amendments, sponsored by Senator McKay and Representative Gibson. And essentially what this bill would have done if it passed would allow political parties to restrict the avenues to get a party nomination for certain candidates, specifically by only allowing nominations through a party convention. We were concerned about this bill because the convention process often results in a little more extreme candidates that don't necessarily represent constituents here in Utah. So this bill ended up just getting circled on the floor on the second reading and never moved. So we can't complain.
Another bad bill that unfortunately passed is SCR 8, the concurrent resolution supporting Utah's natural resources and energy industries. This bill was sponsored by Senator Hinkins and Representative Stratton. And this bill is a resolution supporting the extractive and fossil fuel industry in Utah, as well as the uranium industry for the uses of nuclear power, and urges continued lease sales, consulting the state over national monuments and conservation, and self-determination for the state's energy future.
Another bill that passed that we're really grateful for is HB 433, amendments related to infrastructure funding, sponsored by Representative Schultz and Senator Cullimore. This authorizes a $1 billion bond for specific transit and recreation projects, ranging from improving rapid bus transit, double tracking front runner, performing environmental studies, improving our roads, and outdoor recreational grants and money for state parks for everyone to enjoy. We're really excited this bill passed so that we can get more people outside while continuing to protect our environment.
One resolution that we're very pleased passed was HCR 18, concurrent resolution supporting the extension and expansion of the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act. So what this bill does is show support for the extension of the Federal Radiation Exposure Compensation Act to support downwinders. As you may know, throughout the several decades following the Cold War and during the Cold War, there was weapons testing in southern Nevada. And what happened is the radiation from this blew downwind all throughout Utah and the rest of the United States. And many, many people got sick. And the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act is the federal government's way of acknowledging and compensating these individuals. And what this resolution does is show support for our federal delegation to make sure that this is extended through Congress and signed by President.
So another bad bill that ultimately failed was HB 209, which was the vehicle registration fee revisions. And this was the bill that was going to raise electric vehicle registration fees by anywhere from 150 to 400% and make them the highest registration fees in the country. But hundreds of HEAL supporters reached out to their legislators, and the bill ultimately failed on the floor. So thank you everyone for raising your voices. Your legislators do hear you and do listen to you.
We just want to give a big shout out and a big thank you to the dozens of citizen lobbyists who joined us throughout the session. Over 1,200 messages were sent to our lawmakers on the bills that we were watching, and they did hear you. We couldn't have gotten these bad bills crushed or the good ones passed without your help. And make sure to stay tuned for more opportunities to get involved.